lines are set, the odds are high. Every bet a test who will survive. Chasing stacks, outlast the crowd. Only the strongest left now. Who's ready to win? This is more than gambling. Let's start the show. It's Last Man Standing.
Welcome to Last Men Standing, the Circa Survivor Podcast. I am Tony Farmer. He is Jason Anik. We're here to recap the Week 9 slate. We're going to look at every single game on the Week 10 slate from the lens of Circa Survivor. We'll even talk a little bit about the trade deadline. We've got some other fun stuff for you in the show as well. And let me tell you, this is a fascinating Week 10 because Denver and Buffalo are the two obvious choices, two biggest favorites on the board, and 44.9% of the pool has used both of those teams in Circa Survivor. So this is a major choke point, a lot to cover. Jason Anik, how you doing over there, brother?
Great. Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, my favorite time. Don't forget to follow us at Last Men Pod. I know we're going to get to the eliminations, Tony, but unless I'm mistaken, we haven't been on the airwaves since the World Series has concluded. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
I just got to shout out all our Canadian brethren. I mean, we talk about bad beats. We talk about sports gambling, and not even through that lens. Whether it's Chris Hauser, I hope I'm pronouncing the last name right, whether it's our guy Ian McMillan, whether it's Ariel Helwani, all our Steve McLean, Andrew Avery, I'm sure the list goes on, Joe Osborne. I'm sure I'm forgetting buckets of you. I don't even know where to begin. And Chris House came on our show, told the best story ever about being eliminated in Survivor in Week 17. Inject that story into my veins. I've gone back and watched him tell that story. I can only imagine the story he will tell. He was in the building, Game 7. I saw in his Instagram story maybe 20 hours after the fact, like, yeah, here at Game 7. And I just wrote like, oh my God. And I think he wrote back devastation. So any thoughts on that? I'm still thinking about that.
Man, well, as someone who watched his team lose the Super Bowl in person in Las Vegas, in that stadium, it is a tough feeling. I mean, I was in shock for like 24 hours after. I don't want to make this about me, but yeah, that is a tough one to swallow if you're a Canadian sports fan, if you're a Blue Jays fan. That game had it all, though, Jason. I mean, you had that play at the plate where the foot came up off the plate for a quick second, then came back down on the plate. You had that play in left center-ish field where the players collided, and if the ball hits the ground, the game's over. Extra innings, Game 7. I know this is a football show, but what an incredible World Series.
Well, and I'm glad you talked about the game itself because I've been telling it might be recency bias, Tony, but it's the best game I've ever seen. It really is. Given the stakes, that ball drops, Blue Jays are champions, right? And for the Toronto fan base, right? I believe the Stanley Cup hasn't been hoisted in the North American country since 1993. Same year, I believe, for the Toronto Blue Jays. Their first Starved Nation. What's up, Elijah? Appreciate you. But it's just, it blows my mind. I wish them all the best of luck getting back there. It's not that easy to get back there. Sports are just incredible, man. So I know we're going to talk football, but I am still thinking about the Blue Jays fan. My wife's from LA. We had a little bit of rooting interest there, and I didn't have my voice. I'm like taking my shirt off. I didn't even know what was going on. That game was fucking bananas.
And last thing I'll say about baseball, you say you don't know, it's tough to get back there, especially in the AL East. When you've got an up-and-coming Baltimore team, the Rays are always developing people in their farm system. And then, of course, the Red Sox and Yankees can just outspend you every year. So hopefully the Blue Jays get back. But, yeah, that was a tough one to swallow. Back to Circa Survivor here.
Yes.
Last week we had 288 people eliminated, 264 of them, Jason, on the Packers against the Panthers in Lambeau. We've been talking about how the Panthers are so bad on the road and better at home. They went on the road and beat the Packers. That brings us down now to 1,769 entries alive in the fight for $18.7 million. I've still got 2 entries left. I'm excited about that in my name. A couple partner entries as well. So, a 2 in 1,769 chance of taking this thing home on the DD3's revenge entry. Pretty excited about that. This week, as I alluded to, Jason, is going to be really, really fascinating. We had some moves at the trade deadline, a ton of movement. I think a lot of these good teams got better. A lot of these bad teams got worse. What were some of your big takeaways from the trade deadline?
So As a Patriots fan, what I will say, it's too bad that the two teams really in business are both in your division, the Jets and the Dolphins, right? So some of those opportunities, Jalen Phillips isn't going to necessarily send it to the up-and-coming Patriots. And for the Jets and Dolphins, it might be just interesting if the Patriots are calling. You must be like, you kidding me? Patriots are 7-2. That's the team calling us. So that was my personal takeaway. But I guess my main takeaway overall, Tony, is that at the trade deadline, typically it's like ho-hum, where I think a lot of big pieces moved, right?
Yeah.
A team like the Colts, whether you think they're legit or not, it's almost like for me in the NFC, the Seahawks are that team that it's like, oh, are we really looking at them? And the Colts, it's the AFC. Seahawks get Rashid Shaheed, Colts get Sauce Gardner. So to me, two teams that are maybe that we're wondering if we have to believe in them. I think both made real significant impacts. I love Quinnen Williams. I don't know how much the Cowboys are in the conversation, though. I'm sure you got plenty of thoughts on all that noise.
Yeah, if I had to sum up the trade deadline in one or two sentences, it's this. You upgrade Dallas, Indy, Seattle, Jacksonville, Baltimore, and Philly, and you downgrade New Orleans, Jets, Raiders, Titans, and Miami. And of course, there's varying degrees of how much you upgrade and downgrade those teams. But in a nutshell, that's what happened. You bring up Dallas, and I don't know that those moves are going to move the needle and get them to the playoffs. I don't know. It remains to be seen. They got a little hole they've dug themselves in, right? However, the Circa Survivor implications are fascinating because the Cowboys got better, period. We don't know how much better, but it is a fact. The Dallas Cowboys got better. They had, a really big piece on the defensive line and okay, we'll see how it goes piece at the linebacker level. But what's interesting to me is watching Cowboys games, it seemed like they needed help in the secondary. And I would have liked to see them get Sauce Gardner or a safety, a corner, anything. But it was interesting they addressed that need by going with the defensive line, and maybe they're thinking, hey, if we can get pressure on the quarterback, that'll make our secondary better, So I'm really interested to see how this moves the needle for the Cowboys because their offense is good, man. There are no concerns about the Dallas Cowboys offense, okay? But Circa Survivor implications, this Cowboys team got better, and I was already, Jason, starting to think, maybe the Cowboys are the move on Christmas and not Washington. Maybe we go into Christmas with the Dallas Cowboys as a 2.5-point favorite over the Commanders, who just lost Jaden Daniels. We think for the year, but we're not sure. They just lost Marshawn Lattimore. And by the way, you're going to have my back of this show because I keep calling Marshawn Lattimore on all the shows I do Marcus Lattimore. Remember him? But they lost Marshawn Lattimore. They lose Jaden Daniels. And then Luke McCaffrey, their kick returner, is out as well. And now the Cowboys get better. So Washington gets worse. The Cowboys get better. Cowboys might be the move on Christmas. I'm telling you.
Very good stuff there. And on the other side of it, right, the Jets, who's a team that some of us were fading to a fault when I was down to my last entry in week 8, I had the Bengals against the Jets. But this Jets defense that might have scared some folks off of betting against the Jets or fading that particular outfit. Maybe you don't mind betting on this Jets team. How many teams is this Jets team going to win on the way out or on the way to a top 3 pick? Not many down the stretch. So I think some of these teams that sold are certainly hoping that at the end of these football games, they are ending up on the losing end.
And I'm glad you brought the Jets up, Jason, because not only did they lose those 2 guys, but I don't know if you saw this today. I just saw it like an hour before I came on the show. But they also demoted Quincy Williams, not to be confused with Quinnen Williams, who was traded.
Interesting.
So former all-pro linebacker who hasn't had the type of season we're used to seeing him have. He's going to be replaced with a 5th-round rookie. So this signals to me, maybe too strong to say the Jets are tanking, but they are certainly prioritizing player growth over wins at this point. When you take a guy like Quincy Williams off the field and you put in a 5th-round rookie to replace him at the linebacker level. So I would say the Jets have actually downgraded, unless this 5th-round rookie's a stud, and I don't know what I'm talking about. It sounds like they've downgraded significantly at 3 spots on the defense.
Well, and if you want to quote unquote tank without doing it on purpose, throw a guy out there. Certainly that Bengals defense, it looks like that's a tanking defense, right? I honestly, Tony, if I was 1 of 11, I'm not sure there's a different result on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
That Bengals defense is so bad.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm glad you brought that up real quick. So I was watching a numbers game on VSiN. I'm actually going to be on their show tomorrow. I was watching their show today.
Let's
and they had
go.
Aaron Schatz from FTN Fantasy. He created the DVOA metric. And for people out there who aren't familiar with it, it's one of my favorite metrics to use when you're analyzing football games. It takes into account strength of schedule and things like that. Long story short, going back to the friggin', I think they said 70s or 80s, the Bengals are like one of the worst 2 defensive teams, according to that DVOA metric, going back decades, Jason. They are historically bad. And they don't play this week, so we don't have to talk too much about them, but know that Bengals defense is bad and a nice team to fade, over team to consider as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, Tony, I'm not like a big FOMO guy, like fear of missing out, grateful for the opportunities I get in life, but I have FOMO now in this contest. For those who don't know, I've been eliminated. So maybe that's why the Bengals are on the tip of my tongue, Tony. But even though I've been eliminated, you can be sure I did a good job living vicariously through Tony in 2024, intend to do the same here in 2025. Let's go, Tony. And absolutely. I said, I got receipts. I said, Tony's going to win this thing at some point. Maybe it's going to be 2025, Tony.
Still and live, you know baby. What? Jason, I want to win this. I want that $18.7 million, but I got to admit, it'd be great for the show. Right?
Yes,
Wouldn't it be good for the show in terms of credibility, people tuning in because we got a past champion? So there's a little bit of that too. I want to do it for us, for the whole team. Mike in the background. I want to do it for the whole team and bring it home. So we'll see how
and one more thing. If anything happens to your partner or your guys you consult with, right? It was me. Okay?
That's funny because he's probably watching this show right now, so he knows that he's on your hit list. Good stuff there. All right, let's go ahead and pull up the Week 10 projections from Survivor Atlas. And as we always say, these are fluid throughout the week. So the projections that you're seeing now are not going to be the same projections that are there on Friday. Go to survivoratlas.com to check them out every day. But this is a nice starting point for us, just to give us an idea of what to expect heading into this week. Jason, only about 30-ish, maybe 31% of people have Denver available. About 30-ish% of people have, Buffalo
Carolina.
Available.
Okay.
Buffalo. And about 90-ish, in the 90s, has Carolina available. So your two best options are very, very low owned. So it makes this a fascinating week. Yeah, I like you bringing up Carolina there, Jason, because we're not used to seeing the Carolina Panthers 25% owned in Week 10 of Circa Survivor. But that's the situation we're in because it's slim pickings this week, man. It's very, very slim pickings, and it's going to make Week 10 fascinating.
And if there's any recency bias, those that were eliminated on the Packers, it was certainly the biggest chunk last week. I was at the hands of those Carolina Panthers. So for those that want to ride any of that momentum, maybe you got a little confidence there.
Absolutely. And I also want to talk about our splash contest. Jason and I 0 for 2 on our splash contest. We did the Bloody Survivor, then we did the extra Bloody Survivor, 0-2. We're going to try to at least survive a week this week in Splash's contest. And we're going to talk at the end of the show about which entries we think we're going to land on in those contests. But what contests are we signing up for this week, Jason?
All right, I'm going to pull these up right now. I'm so excited to tell you about this. So we got 2, Tone. So the first one is the Splash 250,000 extra Bloody Survivor. And shout out everyone at Splash Sports because Tony and I we got to do better, Tony, and we're going to do better this week. $100 to enter, 3 games, Tone. We got to pick 3 winners. And you know what we're not going to do this week, Tony? And forgive me for those who don't like the language. Put us on television, I won't curse. But we're not going to fuck around and find out this week, Tony. We're not going to get cute this week. We're not going to get cute
right? Let's get there
with our extra Bloody Survivor. But what I'm most excited to tell you about, our other $50 entry is in Cousin Sal's $50,000 Bloody Loser Survivor.
Bloody Loser?
Maybe most appropriate for me, Tone. Entrance attempt to select the loser for 2 games per week. All right, Tony?
2
How about that?
per week. Okay.
So before the end of the show, a little tease for those of you. Follow us at Last Men Pod. But at the end of the program, we are going to pick our 3 winners for the extra Bloody and our 2 losers for the Cousin Sal.
I like your confidence. You're calling them winners and losers. I like that.
So, well, I mean, isn't that what it is, right? We're choosing 3 folks we think, 2 losers. I'm going to get the losers right. But hey, before we move on, Mike, if you could put up the eliminations, I just want to shout out one entry real quick from the elimination board. If you could put up this shout out to the entry that got through on the Seattle Seahawks. That's my sharp play of the week at the Commanders. No sweat. Confident play. I hope that person made money on that game as well. Tony, you talk about a bullshit cushion, which is your theme. I wish you had coined that in week 3 and not week 8, by the way. Maybe I'd still be alive. But the bullshit cushion. But I just want to shout out that one particular entry on the Seahawks because that was coming for the Commanders. The Seahawks are a much better football team. There was only one entry there, and I thought that was particularly sharp. I didn't want to forget that.
I like it. And Jason, how about the two people on the Bears? That was a heck of a ride. I mean, top 5 sweaty wins this season. I mean, that was an unbelievable finish. Absolutely ridiculous roller coaster game back and forth in that fourth quarter. Wow. So congrats to those two people as well. All right. We ready to jump into this Thursday nighter? Because it's a big one, Jason.
Oh, baby.
It's a big one. It's the one that a lot of people are tuning in to hear us talk about. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Raiders at Broncos. 31.9% of people have Denver available. It's a really low number. Last year, for what it's worth, Denver swept both games in this series. Neither of these games were close. So FYI on that. Future value-wise, Denver plays the Raiders again at Las Vegas in week 14. And of course, as we all know, they are an underdog on Christmas against the Chiefs. So they do have a little bit of future value. Matchup wise for me, Jason, it's hard for me to imagine Ashton Genty having a big game for the Raiders. He struggled this season. I'm going to put the disappointment label out there just because people were talking about him being a rookie of the year candidate, and that ain't happening. I think under 4 yards per carry for him. This Denver defense, talked about that DVOA metric earlier, 3rd in rush defense DVOA this season. One of the best rushing defenses in the league. Don't know that Genty's going to be able to get going. And by the way, they're one of the best rush defenses in the league without Dre Greenlaw. Dre Greenlaw's back. I think they're going to have trouble. Raiders lose Jacoby Myers in a trade, so they lose one of their best weapons. It's all going to come down to Brock Bowers. Can Brock Bowers take over this game? And can this Denver defense game plan to stop Brock Bowers? Because I think the Raiders might be a little bit one-dimensional on this one. I got a couple more things to say on this game, but one here, someone a couple hours ago messaged us on Twitter and pointed out that Bill Vinovich apparently might have some beef with Sean Payton. Check this out, Jason. Do you remember that 2019 NFC Championship game? The no call on the DPI, Saints-Rams? Bill Vinovich. Okay, that was a big play. Bill Vinovich was the ref for that game, and it kind of screwed over Sean Payton's Saints. Then Sean Payton's first game as the Broncos head coach, he had another surprise onside kick like he did in that Super Bowl, and the Broncos recovered it. Illegal touch. Bill Vinovich calls a penalty. They end up losing that game. So for what it's worth, maybe Bill Vinovich is a bad luck charm for Sean Payton. If you're a conspiracy theorist, you can go down a whole nother road, but just wanted you guys to know that history there. What are your thoughts, Jason? If you were still alive in Circa Survivor on a short week, would you trust the Broncos here?
You throw me out now. I'm thinking about Vinovich. I'm totally thrown off with your Vinovich stuff. Now I almost want to rip up my notes. So I will just say, and I'm not going to talk about my entry that didn't survive, but I did have Bills and Broncos available in this spot. So for those that have Bills and Broncos available, I think it's a different conversation than those that only saved one of those two teams, right? So if you have, because I do believe in both of those football teams long-term, and in terms of future value, while I could give you specific spots, I think you can find spots for great teams through the course of an NFL season like the Bills and Broncos. We can get to more specifics later. I don't love Thursday wild card games, and I call them wild card games because they really feel like wild cards. We've had a lot of carnage on Thursday nights this season. I don't think, in terms of a handicap on this game, I don't think Denver loses in this spot. You know, the Raiders gave Jacksonville all they could handle last week. Brock Bowers was great, but they came up short. And so I think they'll compete for Pete Carroll, and I think he'll be chomping on his gum, and I think maybe it's a close game. I'm not suggesting maybe that I like Broncos by double digits, but I just think Sean Payton knows in this conference, in this division, you got the Chargers. The Chiefs are going to be chomping for you. You can't play with your food. Like, I think this is a very important spot, and I think part of the reason they've won games continuously is because Sean Payton knows that winning is paramount. So I understand they haven't blown teams out. Maybe this is the spot where they do blow a team out. And when you trade a player away and you become a seller, you brought up the Jacoby Myers point. Who knows what that locker room is like for the Raiders. So it will surprise me very much if Las Vegas wins this game. But I potentially, you mentioned the at Las Vegas in week 14, if I'm not mistaken, for future value. But even at Washington week 13, if I'm not mistaken, for Denver, right? At Washington looks like maybe perhaps an easy out on a schedule. So that even changed for me this week in terms of an analyzing the future value for Denver. But I do love them in this spot despite the division game and despite the fluke tendency of Thursday nights.
I'm so glad that you brought up that Denver-Washington game because it's a good lesson in a Survivor skill, which is always reanalyze your grid after every week. Because that's a game that originally, I don't know, Jaden Daniels healthy. I wouldn't be trusting Denver against Washington. But once those guys get hurt, it suddenly becomes very, very viable. So good call on your end. Good catch on your end.
And another thing, too, I'll say, one of the things my brother said to me the moment we were eliminated from this contest, appreciate you, Stevie Pan, as always, on the VIP list there. But my brother said, we got to continue to play the contest out so that we get the experience of going through the contest. We're eliminated week 8. We only had 4 entries. I'd love to have more entries. I learned a lot, but I need to continue to learn and play out this one entry that did survive. I didn't have the luxury of the Colts week 8. So what I'll tell you, those of you that aren't in it, stay in it as we move on.
I like that. A couple other notes on this game. Max Crosby has played 12 career games against Denver. You want to guess how many sacks he has against Denver in 12 games, Jason?
Gosh, if you give me over under 25, I'd probably go right around that number.
He's had 15 and a half sacks in 12 career games, which is really impressive. So if you want to ask me, I like Denver in this game. I like the Raiders to cover, by the way, too. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, personally. But if you ask me for a path for the Raiders to win this game, it's the matchup of Max Crosby against Mike McGlinchey for the Broncos. So I've watched every game in Mike McGlinchey's career when he was on the 49ers, and he's an above-average tackle, but he can absolutely get wrecked by elite defensive ends, and that's what Max Crosby is, and Max Crosby's already wrecked him in the past, so keep an eye on that matchup when you're watching this game. Last thing I'll say about this game, the Raiders are coming off a grueling, demoralizing overtime game. Not just overtime, but the full overtime period. A little tired issue, going to the altitude air in Denver on a short week. A lot of reasons to like the Broncos here.
That, honestly, Tony, that may be the most important point we've made in 5 minutes here. I'll tell you right now, that would move the needle for me.
Yeah, I think this is a smoke 'em if you got 'em game for the Broncos. If you've
I love some of these, right? Remember we were talking about that last call for out calls, smoke them. Last man standing. Let's go.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point about Denver against Washington, but unless you also have the Bills, that might be debatable. Denver or Buffalo. But if you have Denver and don't have the Bills, I think it's a pretty easy choice to fire away on Denver. That's just my opinion. All right, moving on here. We've got a Berlin game. Falcons at Colts. Let's not spend too much time on this game, Jason, because only 2% of the field, 35 entries, have the Colts available. FYI, Michael Pittman didn't practice today for the Colts. Colts get to show off their new toy with Sauce Gardner. I think it's a great spot to deploy the Colts if you have them. And I would venture to say those 35 people who kept the Colts probably kept them for this week because either they didn't have Denver and Buffalo or they just felt like this would be a spot where there could be a lot of carnage. Falcons are kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team, so keep that in mind. You could get the Falcons' best effort here, and their ceiling is a little scary. But otherwise, I don't have too much else to say on this game. Do you, Jason?
Based on what you said, I have a little more to say. You know, you use the word effort with the Falcons, and I think the Patriots brought out the best in this Falcons team. The Falcons almost really deserved to win. Missed extra point, they would have tied the game. Michael Penix Jr. started to look like the best version of himself, right? He made quick decisions. He wasn't afraid to run the ball. And Drake London has to be him. Like we talked about Drake London on the huddle on Oddshark last year. Drake London, you got to go get yours. You got to put yourself in that top 5 conversation. So I didn't want to talk much about this game, to your point, because a lot of people don't have the Colts. And if you didn't use the Colts already, I think if Atlanta wants it, I think they could be dangerous here.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. I like it. We've got perhaps the two, I don't want to say most important, but two very important games to talk about coming up next, Jason. We've got Saints at Panthers, followed by Giants at Bears. Massive Survivor implications. Before we get to that, though, let's go ahead and roll a spot here from Survivor Sweat. If you're in Circa Survivor, you have to go to the marketplace at survivorsweat.com. You can shop for entries that other people have registered or sell a percentage of your entry. Get knocked out early and suffering from FOMO? Head over to survivorsweat.com today and see which entries are available for sale. Definitely head on over to the Survivor Sweat marketplace. Jason, A family member of mine sold 25% of an entry for $8,000. So it's very much a seller's market right now.
Great
Just
stuff.
FYI on that. Head on over to survivorsweat.com. All right. Saints at Panthers. 98.8% of people have Carolina available, which is why that projection number was so high, roughly 25-ish percent. Saints trade away Trevor Penning, who is playing guard for them. He has some experience at tackle as well. He gets shipped to the Chargers. Rashid Shaheed, their deep threat, he gets shipped to Seattle. And I think this is a tough spot, Jason, for a rookie quarterback making his second career start, Tyler Shuck, without his best weapon and a depleted offensive line. A couple other things for you guys to know in this one. Rico Dowdle, who has been so instrumental in this turnaround for the Panthers. I think a lot of people out there don't understand how good this guy's been this season, so let me break it down for you. 5.6 yards per carry for Rico Dowdle. There's been 2 games out of his last 5 that he wasn't really featured because Chuba Hubbard came back and stole some carries. But if you look at the last 3 games that Rico Dowdle has been featured, he's averaging 173 yards per game. He is absolutely electric, and he's a big reason for this Panthers turnaround. So we'll see if he can keep it going against the Saints. But it should be noted, he wasn't at practice today.
Right.
And I saw him live during the game last week. He was laying on the ground, and he kind of gestured over to like his groin area, like the inside of his thigh. And I remember thinking, he stayed in the game, but I remember thinking, I wonder if this is going to impact his ability to play next week. So certainly keep an eye on him throughout the practice week if you are considering using the Panthers. The coaches are saying he's going to play, but maybe that's a smokescreen. Maybe they want the other team to prepare for Dowdle, and actually they bring out Hubbard. Maybe they want to mess with the Saints a little bit. We'll see. But would you trust the Carolina Panthers? I don't believe these words are coming out of my mouth. Would you trust the Carolina Panthers in this spot in Circa Survivor Week 10?
Well, for those that don't have Broncos and Bills or neither, you really are, and have the Panthers available to you, I'd be thrilled. I'd be thrilled to have them available with Tyler Shuck coming to town. I think we talk about bullshit cushion. It really is a margin for error. And as I talked about the New England Patriots, and it proved itself, they were blowing teams out. They looked like one of the best teams in football. They had margin for error. Drake May played one of his worst games as a pro, still beat Atlanta by 1 point, but they had margin for error. They could throw up all over themselves a little bit to an extent and still win the football game. So I think there's a bit of a margin for error here with the Panthers, meaning if Rico Dowdle doesn't walk through that door, I still think they can squeeze by. It does feel like a sweat, though, for teams like the Panthers that don't put up 25, 28 points a game. All of a sudden you get a pick 6 early, something happens, and then it can be a real sweat. And then the Saints are like, let's go out and win a fucking football game today, boys. Let's just go win a football game today because it'll feel good to win in Carolina today, boys. And then a little momentum. So this game scares me a little bit. The division component doesn't scare me as much as a lot of people, but I also, some of these rookie quarterbacks, Tyler Shuck at some point, like, I wonder what his mindset is. I bet if he was my friend and I was talking to him this week, maybe I'd have some confidence that he's figuring some things out and some growing pains are behind him. So I think there are better options in the Panthers, but I do think they get through the Saints in a season where they're trying to have their stock go upward.
You talk about Tyler Shuck's mindset. I saw a quote from him last week, and he said something to the effect of, what a great opportunity I have to just go out there and let it rip. And to me, what that said is the coaches are telling him, hey, man, take chances. We want you to grow and develop. Don't even worry so much about winning the game. Take chances. And does that make the Saints a little scarier? Does that, knowing that he's just going to be letting it rip? I think the Saints' ceiling in this game might be a little higher because of that. We'll see.
And have you ever seen Bryce Young let it rip? Like, that's the one thing he needs to do. Let it rip, Bryce Young. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, out there, like, I know he's calm and poised. Like, any fire in there? Have you ever seen him mad? Anyway.
No, I'm with you on that. I have some issues about Bryce Young's demeanor, but we'll save that for another show. We got a comment here from Michael. I agree with Michael, but I also want to correct something. So the Panthers lose Christensen, their guard. We talked about that last week. That is an absolutely huge loss. But they also got back Zavala. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but he is an adequate guard. So I feel like they lost a good guy. They got one back. And so it's just a little downgrade there at the guard position. They're getting Mays back at center. He practiced in full today. So I don't think the Panthers offensive line is as banged up as people might think, but it's a little downgrade from how they have been recently. It's something to be aware of. I love this comment here. I believe this dude's name is Scott, but I could be wrong on your first name. I apologize if I'm wrong on that, but I've seen your comments before. He says, I'm stressing it's down to 16 entries left in Westgate. Jason, Westgate is the $5,000 entry. So this is big bucks here. Unfortunately,
no holidays.
No holidays. Good call. Standard pool. Thanks for the clarification. He says, I'm stuck with either the Panthers, Bears, or Browns. It sounds like he's in this position that a lot of other people are in. They've burned Denver and Buffalo to get this far. Watching you guys to help me try to salvage one more winner. Not going to give you an answer today, but hopefully you can get something out of the show. Like you said, I would just strongly consider the ownership of the people in Westgate. We're going to talk on this show about the ownership numbers in Circa. If you're trying to decide Panthers, Bears, if you like them equally, and I don't know if you do, but if you like them equally and you can look at the numbers and say, well, a couple people probably haven't burned the Bears actually in Westgate at this point. But if you can project out that the Bears will be less owned, then maybe you go Bears if there's going to be more people on the Panthers, if you feel all else is equal. And if you like the Panthers a little better, you got to take that in consideration. Is the amount that I like the Panthers a little better worth it? I think it's like an extra 3% win probability if you want to talk about it in those terms. Is that worth it when I know there's going to be more people on the Panthers? A lot to think about here.
Well, Seahawk Sanders, you are alive, so I wouldn't phrase it unfortunately stuck with. No, you got a couple opportunities to win, and I like your chances to select the right squad, brother. Good transition to Giants Bears, unless you have anything else on Saints Panthers, Tony.
I don't think so. I do want to add one thing about that Carolina win against Green Bay. Anytime you go on the road in Lambeau, it's impressive, okay? And I want to give them their flowers, okay? But when you look at that box score of that game, it wasn't that impressive of a win. The Panthers had 100 less yards than the Packers. They had less yards per play than the Packers. The time of possession was about equal. The Panthers won that game because they had 2 timely turnovers and they were 2 for 2 on fourth down. They got 2 big fourth downs early in that game, 3-point game. That was the difference. And I don't know that that's a sustainable way to continue winning games. So don't get overhyped on the Panthers here. They are a little bit of an up-and-coming team, but don't start thinking that they're this great playoff team at this point just because they beat the Packers. The Browns beat the Packers earlier this year, too. Remember that as well.
I tell you what, with all the sports gambling stuff, check LaFleur and Jordan Love's bank accounts. All this sports they're losing to some suspect teams. Anyway,
yeah.
I'm just messing around.
You're not kidding. Well, earlier this week on Twitter, we had a post on at Last Men Pod about the teams that have been the most responsible for people leaving this Circa Survivor Contest. And the Packers, 2 weeks, were the top team on the board for, eliminations. So they're maybe last year's version of the Bengals, the team that was really knocking people out. Maybe that's the Packers this year. And a good team that's good enough for you to take them, but can be a little bit inconsistent. All right, moving on here. We've got Giants at Bears. Again, another big one. 81.7% of people in Circa have the Bears available. I need you guys to know this might be a weather game. 14-mile-per-hour winds, maybe some stronger gusts that can start to impact
Seahawk Sanders. Doppler, Tony's got you. Sorry, Tone.
13% chance of snow in this one, Jason. We might see snow in this one.
I love it.
Both of these kicking teams have rough kicking situations. Graham Gano misses practice today for the Giants. And Santos for the Bears, he just missed another kick last week. His field goal percentage is under 80%. So you got 2 bad kickers in a game that might be high winds. This game could be adventurous. Just know what you're signing up for. Roma Dunze and DJ Moore both didn't practice today. That's a big deal. Keep an eye on that. And DeAndre Swift limited in practice today with a groin issue. Bears lose a defensive end for the season. They trade for Joe Tryon Shoyinka. Say that 10 times fast. They trade for him. Maybe I feel like that's like an equal move. They didn't really get better or worse. That's probably about an equal trade-off. Tryon Shoyinka didn't play much at all for Cleveland this season. This is going to be, the Giants' first game without Cam Scadaboo last week. They averaged 5.6 yards a carry. That includes Jackson Dart's carries, but Singletary found some nice lanes as well. So the Giants did okay running the ball without Cam Scadaboo. And the last thing I'm going to say on this game before I turn it over to you, Jason, the Giants are 0-4 on the road this year, and they even lost to the Saints on the road. So keep that in mind as well. What do you got for me on this one, brother?
The luxury of this contest, and I've always been a point spread guy, so I don't really have to look at the point spread. We see you, Dixon. Appreciate you. So the weather component does give me pause, but I like the Bears a lot here. I do think it's a potentially zigzag spot as well. I know you might have to do that. As Seahawks Sanders said, you might have to play this team here. But the next 4 opponents for the Bears: at Minnesota versus Pittsburgh, at Philadelphia, at Green Bay. I could go on, but they only have 2 easy games in the remaining 9 for the Bears. And you can be sure Ben Johnson knows it. This is one of those 2. So for me, believe it or not, both conferences are tough. The NFC is crazy this year. That division is crazy. And it's almost like now or never if you're going to use Chicago. They're home to Cleveland week 15. You got to get there. So I love that spot. But if you're going to use Chicago here, I think the Giants lose as much by not having Cam Scatterbo in the locker room as on the field in terms of we're going to get this one today. So the weather would give me pause, but I think the Bears know that they got to check this box if they're going anywhere this season.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Cam Scatterbo is like also a mascot for that team as well.
Yeah.
Like he gets the locker room rallied up and gets everybody fired up. Everybody loves his running style.
Dude, he's going in the blue tent. So. He's a doctor, part of the concussion protocol. Yeah,
absolutely.
He's
absolutely.
Everywhere.
All right, moving on here. We've got Jaguars at Texans. And Jason, I get a lot of DMs throughout the week on our Twitter account, my personal account, people asking me about games. Hey, Tony, what do you think about this? I've gotten probably more questions about this game so far this week than any other game because there's people who are interested in both sides of it. CJ Stroud, we know now, is going to be out. So you're going to have Davis Mills in there for the Texans. 71.2% have Houston available. 91.1% have the Jaguars available. Devin Lloyd is back at practice in full this week. He missed last week's game. Will Anderson, stud for the Texans, missed practice today with a quad issue. That might be a minor thing, but let's keep an eye on that. Let's make sure he plays. For what it's worth, the last 6 times that these teams have played, they've split the series 3-3. The one point that I want to make on this game, Jason, if you like the Jaguar side, okay, that's fine. Take the Jaguars. But please don't take the Jaguars side just because you're going up against the backup quarterback. That's a mistake. As someone who lost in week 17 last year to Jake Locke, who had 5 touchdowns that day, rushing and passing. As someone who lost a Circa Survivor entry in the final 50 against another backup quarterback, Jake Browning. Trust me, backup quarterbacks can hurt you. Last week, Jacoby Brissett took out 8 people on Monday Night Football. Backup quarterback. Mac Jones, 49ers backup quarterback, takes out a bunch on the Rams earlier this year. So just don't let your eyes get too big. Oh, it's a backup quarterback. What an opportunity. You've been warned. Backup quarterbacks can take you out. So if you like the Jaguars for other reasons, okay. But don't just take them because you're going up against the backup quarterback, please.
I agree. Well, Davis Mills looked like he was not ready to play football in relief duty last week, and sometimes guys really aren't ready like they need to be. And I do think he'll be a little more ready, but I hate betting on the Jaguars, right? I bet the Jaguars when they were plus 1.5 because I knew Stroud wasn't going to play. But Tony, I didn't play a lot on it because I do not like betting on the Jaguars. I felt like I had to play it, right? But yeah. So I do not like Trevor Lawrence at all. I'm so curious how much Liam Cohen actually likes Trevor Lawrence, because I just don't. I think he throws a football too hard. He doesn't put touch on the football when he needs to. Everything's the same speed. I'm not a fan. I don't like his leadership, but they're banged up. Brian Thomas Jr. is banged up. Part of the reason Jacoby Myers there and Travis Hunter on IR. So I just don't know what to make of this team. Davis Mills, to me, we could talk about a backup quarterback, but he's like, oh God. I mean, when's the last time this guy's a little bit, I wouldn't mind fading Davis Mills here, but the Houston defense is legitimate. So to me, from a survivor standpoint, no, thank you. And even from a gambling standpoint, your point's very well taken. If you like the Jaguars, fine. Maybe they're going for it by making a trade, a little juice in the locker room, maybe, but I'm with you.
Yeah, and I agree with you that Davis Mills did not impress me last week, but I want to make the point that the Texans were still in that game, despite Davis Mills' shortcomings, because that defense that you talked about is so good. And that same defense is going to be on the field this week. So I'd be very, very, very careful taking the Jaguars here in that spot. Bills at Dolphins. This is the other big boy this week. 31.1% have the Bills available. The Dolphins played the Bills very tough earlier this year. Thursday Night Football, the final score was 31-21. But let me tell you, that game was a lot closer than the final score indicated. But I also want to make the point, Jason, it was a very different team the Dolphins had that day. They had Tyreek Hill on the field that day. They had Jalen Phillips on the field. He was just traded. And the Dolphins were playing with a little zest because they were 0-3. And it was like, this is our opportunity to turn our season around. We could still make the playoffs. They're a bit more demoralized now this time around. And the Bills are in a situation where Patriots are ahead of them. Your New England Patriots are ahead of the Bills in the AFC East. They don't have time to play with their food. They need to put in a good effort. I think we're going to get the Bills' best effort here. And the Bills feel very, very, very comfortable for me in Circa Survivor. What say you?
Couldn't agree more. You know, the Bills tended to be the fly in the ointment in some of the Patriots runs. Like even when the Patriots had these dynasties, they'd lose to the Dolphins once every year. So, but your point's very well taken. Not the same roster. And Jalen Waddle probably wishes his last name was Phillips and he wasn't still in Miami. You know, that locker room, hard to think they're really rallied up. I just think Buffalo's locked in right now. And living down here in South Florida, you talk about the weather and teams coming down and it's starting to cool off down here. I think that's a good thing. I absolutely love the Bills in this spot. I think I like them -9.5. And, you know, when you look at the schedule, the Bills, to me, are one of those teams that has future value because they're probably going to be favored in most of their games, despite the schedule not necessarily looking that easy. But this was a spot that I saved them for and didn't get to for them. I like them more than I like Denver this week, you can be sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up about the Bills having future value because I agree with you. They're going to be favored in most of their games. It's like when you're measuring future value, what do you value more? Like a team like, let's say, the Chargers, who have a really, really, really good spot in week 13. That's like kind of an elite spot, but not many other spots to use them. Or a team like the Bills, who may not have that elite spot, but are going to be smaller favorites in a bunch of weeks, you know, and that's an individual question for people to answer, I think.
But, and yes, and the reason I go there with the general future values, I think that elite spots present themselves just as if that spot we talked about for Washington later in the season. So, so an elite team will have elite spots. And certainly when because Tony going to make it to the end of this thing, as you get to week 16, 17, or 18, you could have a gift for having one of these really sort of solid teams available to you when they need to win. But that's a different conversation as you get to the end.
Yep, absolutely. Good stuff from you. Ravens, Vikings. 73.6% of people have the Ravens available in this spot. And I'll tell you what, Jason, I like the Ravens a lot in this spot, and I got a lot of reasons why. However, this is my 10-foot pole game of the week because I like the Ravens side. But if I had the Ravens available in Circa Survivor, which I don't, by the way, but if I did, I wouldn't be pulling that trigger because the Ravens obviously not only have a great spot on Thanksgiving, the game before Thanksgiving against the Jets, Ravens just have way, way, way too much future value. So it's not that I'm worried about the Vikings winning this game, even though the Vikings just beat the Lions and look good doing it. I just don't want to throw away that future value on the Ravens. How about you?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And anyone who has the Ravens for Thanksgiving, I just don't know how you look at the Ravens in this spot. It's also my 10-foot pole game, Tony. Great minds think alike. I think our 10-foot pole game has been the same every week. But also, J.J. McCarthy, whatever you may think of J.J. McCarthy, every sharp mind that I listened to loved Detroit last week to stomp Minnesota. I was surprised that Minnesota went in and he makes them believe. We talk about Cam Scatteraboo. J.J. McCarthy makes them believe. So do you think that if I'm Justin Jefferson, I think we got a great chance to beat the Ravens at home? Absolutely. Ravens are 3-5. We're 4-4. Let's go. Let's see if we can get JJ hot. And Kevin O'Connell is a unique leader. So for me, we could go on about this particular game. I believe the Ravens are still in desperation mode. So I think they find a way to get some things done here. But I think Minnesota is also live at the same time. So Survivor, layoff for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Ravens are an ascending team. There's no doubt in my mind they're going to win the overwhelming majority of the rest of the games for the season. They have kind of a soft schedule. Everybody's getting healthy now.
Yep.
By the way, they're the favorites to win the division, even though they're 2 games back of Pittsburgh right now. So, yeah, same page there. All right, next up, another fascinating one, Jason. Browns at Jets. 41% chance of rain in this one, by the way. Most people have the Browns and Jets available. Browns are off a bye. And big news to come out. This is the sort of stuff you don't get on a lot of other Survivor shows. I'll put it that way. But Kevin Stefanski, the Browns head coach, relinquishes play calling responsibilities to Tommy Rees. So it's going to be a different guy calling the plays for Cleveland this week. Last year, he did the same thing. Browns were 1-6, and ahead of their next game, I believe it was week 8, Stefanski lets Ken Dorsey call the plays. And what happened in that game? Browns were 7-point underdogs. They beat the Ravens 29-24. It provided a little bit of a spark. And I think that's what they're looking for here with the move to Tommy Rees off of their bye, is a little bit of a spark. Browns are a small favorite. Before all the trade deadline stuff, Jason, the Browns were a dog. The Jets were the slight favorite, 1.5, about 2-ish points. Now you get rid of those two guys in the Jets, you demote Quincy Williams, and all of a sudden we got a situation where the Browns are a small favorite. And there will be, I promise you, there will be people looking at the Browns in Circa Survivor this week. There might even be a few on the Jets side as well. And we saw with Scott's question, he threw the Browns in there as a team that he's considering too. And I think it's a team that should absolutely be in the conversation. And one of the main reasons they should be in the conversation is because they're going to be a lot less owned than both the Panthers and the Bears. So if you like all three equally, and I don't know that you do, but if you like all three equal, go with the one that's less owned. That's Survivor Strategy 101. But I would venture to say most people probably feel a little more comfortable with a team like the Panthers than the Browns. But I also don't want to overlook this rain thing. As someone who lost a ton of entries in week 1 Circa Survivor, I believe it was 2022, in a sloppy 49ers-Bears game, I don't like trusting my Circa Survivor life on a sloppy game because it increases the variance. There's going to be more fumbles. There's going to be, bad snaps and bad holds on kicks and stuff like that. So that does give me a little bit of pause with the Browns here too. Would you trust Cleveland with a Circa Survivor entry, Jason?
No way. Not even for a second. So do you think Woody Johnson wants to win this football game, Tony?
I don't. I think he's better off with his franchise getting the number 1 overall pick.
And I think that Aaron Glenn is in his back pocket in more ways than one. He endorsed the heck out of him.
Yeah.
So I guess that is the only reason that I maybe like the Browns is that maybe the Jets figure out how to tank without tanking. We talk about what they've done with their roster. So that would be the only reason, but the Jets are way too much of a wild card. And let's say that Woody Johnson is not having a conversation with the head football coach about losing this football game, then that's a reason I'm an intangible guy, Tony. You think that Jets locker room, fuck all those guys, big money guys, get them out of here. We're building something here. We're going to be there. I do. It's sort of like a starting pitcher making his debut. There are these intangible things that can rally a team playing for one another. And for those that got eliminated by this Jets football team, they did a lot of things right that day, despite, week 8 at Cincinnati, despite how bad Cincinnati is. So anyway, lay off for me, dog.
Yeah, it's one of those where if you can pull it off and you can get a win with the Browns or Jets, your entry gets instantly better. You gain on every single person in the field. It's tempting. I'll put it this way. It's something that if I had one entry left, I probably wouldn't do it. But with multiple entries, it is very intriguing. All right, your New England Patriots at Tampa Bay. 52.2% of people have the Patriots available. 83.6% have the Bucs available. Patriots have a really good spot next week against the Jets. By far the best win probability wise, at least by far the best spot. So I think even if you like this matchup with the Patriots, if you still have them, you probably want to save them for next week. The Bucs have good spots later against the Saints and Panthers. I think this should be a fun game to watch, Jason. This is our weekly fun game to watch, but not huge Survivor implications. Bucky Irving didn't practice for the Bucs today. Christian Gonzalez did practice, but he still needs to clear the concussion protocol. Last note I'll say before I turn over to you, Todd Bowles off a bye in his career with 2 different teams. He's 2-5 straight up and 3-4 ATS off a bye. That's not very good.
Tampa might get right tackle Luke Gadecki back. He has not played since week 2. That's significant. This Tampa Bay team, I think, getting a little bit healthier. Your point's well taken, Bucky Irving. Chris Godwin, probably not going to play either, but he could. He's getting closer. I live 4 hours from Tampa Bay. My 11-year-old daughter loves the Patriots, loves football. If I really liked the Patriots in this spot, I might be making that 4-hour drive, but I'm not, Tony. I love Tampa Bay off the bye here. I just think it's a great spot for them. Patriots kind of tried to lose that football game against Atlanta last week, only scored 3 points in the second half. Drake May really looked like he was a little shook after turning it over at the end of the first half. Christian Gonzalez, Mike Vrabel was very cautious with him early in the season. I'm a little surprised he's practicing, frankly. But you never know to what extent they are concussed even. There's not a lot of information out there. So
Yeah.
I ultimately really like Tampa Bay in this spot, and I feel as though the Patriots are a little bit due to give one back. From a survivor standpoint, no way, though, because I think the Patriots, most certainly, if they want to play a complete football game, are just as good, if not maybe better, than this Tampa Bay team. I really believe in New England, but maybe not in this spot. No thanks from a survivor standpoint.
Jason, answer this question for me. The New England Patriots are the blank best team in football. Where do you rank them? Where do you put them?
7th. And that's that's not with having rankings in front of me.
Yeah. That's good. That feels about fair. That feels about fair. I think they showed me a lot in that win against Buffalo on the road. That was a big win for them because their other wins this year have not been that impressive. They beat a lot of bad teams. Without that Buffalo game, I'd be questioning the Patriots, but that was big.
And what I'll say real quick just about the Patriots, like it's the margin for error. Like, you can play a real uneven football game and still find a way to win. And Atlanta, number 1 pass defense in football, and did a lot of things well. So I think the margin for error is a big key in this league, whether it's getting a big lead and holding on or whatever it is. So, and I will say, and then I'll shut up about the Patriots. I said ad nauseum this season, the Patriots were a year away. And then my eyes told me differently. They're a legitimate contender. I've been watching this league long enough. They have what it takes. And I have a lot of respect for Mike Florio, whether he's your cup of tea or not. And a couple weeks ago, he said the same thing that I've been saying about the Patriots. And he is very tapped in. He's been watching it for a long time. The eye test, they got a lot of veterans. You never know.
Yep, absolutely. I'm with you. Good stuff there.
So that's it. You don't have anything else on New England, Tampa, do you?
No, sir.
All right. So that's it for the 1 o'clock games. Let's get to our tremendous sponsor, Race Oracle. Attention racing fans. If you want an edge at the track, you need Race Oracle. This subscription service uses advanced AI modeling built on over 200,000 historical races, crunching hundreds of data points from weather and track conditions to jockey history and speed ratings. Race Oracle gives you proprietary win percentages, Kelly betting strategies, and live odds tracking, covering every race in North America plus the UK and Ireland, so you can bet around the clock with confidence. Don't guess, predict smarter. Subscribe today and start betting with data, not luck. Nice to catch up with our friend Chris Legendry this week from Race Oracle. Some big things coming, folks. Stay tuned. Excited to get some things going. And Tony, one thing I want to say, this is a Survivor show. I agree 100%. Bucks on my radar. All right. Yes.
Bucks. Yep. First of all, the person who made this comment, Joe, is very, very sharp. He does very well in these contests. He's got a good history. I think what he's saying is Bucks are on his radar for Circa Survivor.
Yes.
That's
exactly what he's saying.
That would be a heck of a move there. There won't be a lot of people on him. Wow. Bold.
Well, and it sort of jives with my next point that ultimately us talking through some of these football games, we see the league through different lenses. We ingest the league differently. So for me to talk a little bit more about the Patriots, I do say I usually want to bet against the Patriots and buy wins, but you got to handicap your own team. I've been on the Patriots a lot of weeks, lost money on them last week. I think I'm going the other way this week.
Good stuff. All right, let's move into the 4 o'clock slate. Another huge one with Survivor implications. I got a lot to say about this game here. Arizona at Seattle. Seattle is 44.8% available. They're going to be very popular this week. Strangely enough, the Seahawks are like better on the road than they are at home. I don't have much of an explanation for that. It's been kind of weird. Seattle only beat Arizona by 3 earlier this year. But if you go back and look at that game, Jason, if you watch it again, a lot of weird stuff happened in that game. And I think that was one where Seattle was the much, much, much better team that day. So keep that in mind. Seattle has owned Arizona the last 3 or 4 years. Mike McDonald is a better coach. As high as I was on Jonathan Gannon earlier this year, Mike McDonald has outcoached him the last couple of years. And I liked Seattle a lot in this spot until Arizona showed me something. And believe me, Seattle had a really good game themselves. But did you see Walter Nolan all over the field, the rookie, in his first NFL game? That's a big upgrade to that defense when he can stuff the run and get some pressure on the quarterback. And they got Garrett Williams back too. And I'm talking about the Cardinals, and I haven't even mentioned Jacoby Brissett, who it looks like an upgrade to Kyler Murray. And I think the team is playing better for him. I think when Marvin Harrison Jr. puts his uniform on game days, he's a little bit more excited to go out on the field, knowing that it's Jacoby Brissett and not Kyler Murray throwing him the ball.
I'm so glad you said that. And one thing, I don't know this to happen, but I would bet my life that the issues that Marvin Harrison Jr. early in the season, right? A lot of mental issues, down on himself, lacking confidence. It wouldn't shock me if Jacoby Brissett was helping him through those even when he wasn't on the field. So there could be a relationship there already. And wide receiver quarterback relationship. I mean, look at his father and Peyton Manning, the unspoken greatness between them. So that's a really interesting point. I just wanted to inject myself there with you may go on.
Only other thing I have in this game is 66% chance of rain. I'll repeat what I said earlier. Sloppy conditions increase the variance and can make things a little bit dicey for a favorite. So just keep that in mind if you are considering Seattle in this spot. But Jason, a lot of people don't have, man, I put on Twitter what the number was and I don't have it in my notes, but I want to say it was around 14% of people don't have Seattle, Denver, or Buffalo this week. So dicey week.
Yeah. So in terms of Seattle, I see more future value. They fall into that. They're a juggernaut. Like they got future value because they're a great team. But week 12 at Tennessee, week 17 at Carolina, which may be in the future. But I also think Jacoby Brissett, the Arizona defense could, and a wet field. I'm not going near this from a Survivor standpoint. But if weather wasn't as much of an issue, and who knows, weather reports can change. I do like Seattle in the spot. Some of these backup quarterbacks, right? It's awesome till it isn't. And then it just isn't. And
Good
you're
point.
like, oh, Jacoby Brissett, like, whoa, last week he looked like, Tom Brady. And now he looks like a third string quarterback. It happens overnight with these guys. And it wouldn't shock me if it happens in this spot against Seattle. And I bet they know that they're better on the road. You guys want to put something on for the 12th man in these wet conditions. So not going to shock me if Seattle keeps proving who they are either.
I got a question for you, Jason, and I agree completely. I think it's a brilliant point on your part that these backup quarterbacks can fall off a cliff. I think we saw that earlier from Mac Jones. He had some really, really good games. Then he had one really bad game. Then he has a decent game. Defenses can catch up with what these guys are doing, okay? Great point on your part. The question that I want to ask you is Jacoby Brissett. Is there a chance he could be like the next Geno Smith? Baker Mayfield, someone that people sort of gave up on, assumed that this was a career backup quarterback, and actually ends up being like turning his career around late in his career? Is that possible?
So he's younger. I think it's only his 10th year. I don't know how old he is. It's a really interesting question. And, ultimately what it comes down to, right? If he's continuing to evolve and get better and become more accurate and become more astute and better at reading defenses, if you protect these guys, right? I hate to say it, but right, if he's behind a great offensive line, why not? Why not be able to have a few great years, right? Potentially, yep. I think he's a little better than Geno Smith up here and a little less physically gifted than Geno Smith. But I ultimately think that there's a ceiling on some of these guys, and like whether it's Geno Smith, even a guy like Sam Darnold, right? I hate to say it. Show me something in a big game when it matters against the 49ers or the Rams, your division opponents. I hate to say, you got to prove something when it really matters. Some of these regular season guys too. So Geno Smith, to me, it's kind of where he's supposed to be. I don't know what he's going to achieve in his career, but I don't know. Very interesting point because Jacoby looked spectacular the other night.
Yeah, and when I started thinking about this, I was like, those guys that I mentioned that I compared him to, Baker, et cetera, I would argue that they had lower low points in their career than Jacoby Brissett, right? And so it's like if they can do it, and granted they had better pedigrees, they came out first round pick. Jacoby Brissett, I think, was a third round pick. But like if they could turn their careers around, why not Jacoby Brissett? Is something to kind of think about here. All right, next game up, Rams 49ers. Jason, I'm going to ask you to lead on this, and I'm going to ask Mike to give you a solo shot because my setup here, I need to plug something in. So tell me your thoughts. Lead us off here on Rams Niners.
I love it. So this is Tony's team, and the line has moved a little bit. 49ers plus 4.5. I assume there's some injury news that Tony, you can be sure, knows better than I do. So I think the 49ers are going to be useful to those who survive. I think there's a lot of future value. You talk about the health of the 49ers team, and you want to say, oh, they'll get healthier. I'm not so sure. Fred Warner's not coming back. But some of their future games, week 12, home to Carolina, week 13 at Cleveland. then a bye, week 15, home to Tennessee. So from that standpoint, I just had to mention the 49ers. Obviously, I don't think people are running to play the 49ers this week. Those who have the Rams, right? Do they avenge that Thursday night loss when they lost to San Francisco earlier in the season when they were, 9.5-point favorites? That was week 5, perhaps. I just can't trust them this week. For me, last week was the Rams. And I have said, even though I was eliminated in week 8, I've continued to play this thing out. So the Rams is who I played last week. I have some other contentions, some other things that I'm in contention for that I played the Rams in. So to me, if you have the Rams, this is not a spot I'm looking to use them in. Tony, I don't know if you heard what I said. I talked a little bit about the 4. Okay.
Got it.
So that's all I got on this one, but no thanks. Excited to watch it.
I appreciate you bringing up the revenge angle. I want to take people back to that week 5 game. 49ers win 26-23 in overtime. The Rams dominated that game. The Rams lost that game because of and some people out there don't need me to remind them because they lost entries on it, and some people were eliminated on it. It was a rough game. Kyron Williams had that big fumble right around the goal line, right at the end of that game. And this game had to sort of stick in the craw of Sean McVay and that Rams team. And I feel like ever since that, this game was already circled on their calendar because this is a big rivalry in the NFC West. But I think ever since that game, they've been a little bit more hungry. And I'm a 49er fan. I would absolutely use the Rams in this spot if I have a plan for week 13. Because as good as the Panthers are looking, the Rams play the Panthers in week 13, and that might be one of the best options. So if I'm someone out there who still has the Rams and Chargers available, I would absolutely consider using the Rams here in this spot and then using the Chargers week 13. And I think that path looks pretty good. When the Rams played the 49ers last, they had 7.1 yards per play. The 49ers had 4.9 yards per play. 2.2 more yards per play in that game. The 49ers won that game not just because of that fumble that I mentioned earlier, but they were also 3 for 3 on 4th down. The Rams outplayed the 49ers. 49ers got a little lucky in this game, and the Rams are just a better team. In terms of the injuries that you mentioned earlier, Ricky Pearsall is considered week to week. Probably not going to play in this game. If I had to guess, Puka Nacua has a rib injury, but is expected to play for the Rams. But the 49ers lose another defensive end, torn Achilles. Michael Williams, their rookie. Like, a lot of injuries in San Francisco. I think they're slowly starting to get a little bit healthier. But as you said, some of these big guys aren't coming back. Nick Bosa's not coming back. Fred Warner's not coming back. I think the 49ers are vulnerable in this spot. And I was a little surprised to see they didn't do much of the trade deadline. I like the Rams a lot if you can afford to blow them this week because they're going to be very low owned for sure.
Good stuff there. Next game, unless you're opposed, Lions at Commanders. So line 7.5. I think the line should be bigger here. I think the Washington Commanders are going to be very deflated after Dan Quinn didn't do them any favors, pulling his quarterback from the game. And just Commanders, after getting to the Final Four last year, to already be done and to already have their head coach be so exposed. Like, I just see no way Washington wins this game. From a Circa Survivor standpoint, I think those who have Detroit available were maybe looking way past this spot with good reason. But if you have them available, and the gun to your head, right? Detroit, I love them in this particular spot, bouncing back after losing at home to Minnesota against a very inferior opponent. It wouldn't surprise me if they did exactly what Seattle did at Washington a week ago.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a great spot for Detroit. The only thing that would give me pause, both of Detroit's starting tackles, Sewell and Decker, didn't practice today. As long as one of them is in the lineup, I feel really, really, really good about the Lions in this spot. And honestly, even if they were both out, I'd still be on the Lions money line in this one. Lions are 29.7% available. They're going to be I guess depending on how you feel about how that Vikings-Lions game went last week, I still think the Lions are going to be the team that you want to own on Christmas. And they do have value on Thanksgiving as well because not a lot of people are going to be on them. 21% chance of rain in this one. I'll throw that out there as well. Yeah, I love the spot for the Lions, but I just probably can't pull that trigger because of that future value if I had Detroit. In full disclosure, I do not have Detroit.
And for those of us with FOMO who are just trying to survive, right? Next year, I'm not going to be peeking at these holidays as much. I got to get there. I don't care if I got to play Bengals at Ravens on Thanksgiving with Jake Browning. Let's survive. Let's go, Jake. Let's hope for a little weather. But I am trying to get there. So, yes, you could save Detroit, right? But what it came down to for me is I saved Buffalo. I saved Buffalo. Go ahead, Tony.
It's like with head coaches. We say, like, you can't take the timeouts with you. You got to use them. You know what I mean?
Right,
I guess
exactly.
You're making a similar case there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Cool. Hey, guys, I had the Bills and the Broncos still left. I had them both. You want to see my fucking spreadsheet?
Does it make you feel any better?
You want to see my spread?
Do you want to see my spreadsheet?
You want to see my spreadsheet? I don't have to. Hey, guys, I don't have to log into my proxy site anymore. I don't have to log in anymore. But, Tony, one thing I just have to tell you about my entry, right? The thing that killed me is, like, Tony, I had 4 entries, right? I had the Colts. I only used the Colts in one. It just so happened to be the one that got through and didn't have them that one week. You feel me? So it's like I learned so much. Yeah, I appreciate Splash keeping me going.
Yeah, man. No, you're right, dude. Like, I had the Colts on more of my entries, and they were knocked out because the Cardinals lost. And same thing, I had entries with Detroit available, and the Cardinals lost in week 5 knocks out all of my Detroit ones. So it's like I was smart enough to save them, but just the way it worked out, they end up getting whacked. So
you pushed out a tweet showing the most valuable entries left, and maybe it was a jab at me. I know it wasn't, but you can be sure.
No.
I know, I'm kidding. Every entry on those had Indianapolis in week 8, every single one. He was the Colts.
Yeah.
Who else? House, right? House went out with me on the Bengals. That right? Is that someone else? Someone else went out, right?
Yep.
Anyway, what else? Can we move to Sunday night? I gotta relax. I've been eliminated. Aspen all in, nope. Aspen all out.
You're never gonna hear me tell you to relax because I love your energy more than anybody on earth, man. It's perfect for this show, dude. Chargers Chargers hosting the Steelers. Chargers 75.6% available. As I mentioned earlier, they've got a great spot week 13 off a bye against the Raiders that I think a lot of people are probably saving them for. Earlier in the week, Jason, I really liked the Chargers in this spot a lot. Then the Steelers come out and look really good, and the Chargers lose a bunch of guys on the offensive line. Remember, they went into the season without Slater, their starting tackle. Now they've lost Joe Alt for the season. Bobby Hart, their other tackle, gets hurt. That's 3 tackles. They're down 3 tackles. Mekhi Becton, their guard, in and out of the lineup, constantly hurt as well. Yes, they trade for Trevor Penning, who does have starting experience, but he's not a savior. He's like a mediocre offensive lineman. So I've gone from loving the Chargers to like, oh boy, this is a strength on weakness. The front 7 for the Steelers, we just saw the pressure that they put on Daniel Jones. And I don't want to overreact to that one game from the Steelers. That's what sports bettors shouldn't do, is overreact to one game. But that was the Steelers team that, like, I thought I was going to see the first 7 weeks. So how can I not stop and say, you know what? I think the Steelers are turning the corner. And this is going to be an elite defense for the rest of the season. That's at least a possibility here up against the vulnerable Chargers offensive line. We'll say this, the Steelers beat the Chargers 20-10 last season in week 3. Same head coaches in that game, somewhat similar rosters as well. Anything else you want to add on this one here? I've kind of soured on it a bit.
No, yeah. I mean, from a Survivor standpoint, nothing. I think Pittsburgh's a very interesting team in terms of their future value. Some great spots for them looking in the future. Even next week, home to Cincinnati, and then week 15, home to Miami. So I think that there are a lot of teams uniquely that are going to have a lot to play for. This season might be favorable to Survivor entrance because last season, week 18 was a nightmare. Might not be this year, but I think Pittsburgh's going to have some really important games in their own building against inferior teams. So I think that may be a zigzag spot. You know, perhaps a lot of people probably have Pittsburgh available to them. But anyway, nothing for me on this game. Excited to watch it.
You bring up the Steelers matchup with the Bengals, and I loved their matchup earlier this season, and I lost, I think, 2 entries, taking the Steelers in a great EV spot on Thursday night against the Bengals. I don't know what the hell happened that game. The Steelers defense just didn't show up. Chase Brown has his best game of the year at the running back position for the Bengals. And so Like that's in the back of my mind. We want to call this a revenge spot for the Steelers because of that game, or maybe the Bengals kind of have the Steelers number at this point. I'm a little hesitant to fire away on the Steelers now after what I saw earlier in the season. I'll leave it at that. Last game here before we start talking about our splash entry. Eagles at Packers, Monday Night Football. Another chance of snow here. 11% chance of snow. By the way, 86.5% of people have Philadelphia left. I think they're all saving them for Thanksgiving against the Bears. And 23.6% of people in Circa Survivor have the Green Bay Packers available. The Eagles have some new toys, Jason. They traded for Jalen Phillips from Miami. What's the guy that came out of retirement? The defensive lineman. He's really good. His name's escaping me right now.
Yeah, me too. I got his face in my head. That's
yeah. They get him back as well. And then they get Nolan Smith, who hasn't played since week 3, back as well. Right. So they get Brandon Graham. That's what I was trying to think of. So the Eagles get 3 big pieces added to that defense. They're going to get a chance to show them off here on prime time. I just think both of these teams are just too darn valuable. Even if you have strong conviction, I do like the Eagles side of this better than the Packers, by the way, but just too much value for both of these teams moving forward to fire away in Circa Survivor, in my opinion.
Yeah, fuck the Packers, Tony. Right? You don't mind that? That evokes a good emotion in Tony, which I knew it would. But no, I lean Philly. I think Philadelphia is going to go on a roll here. A lot of bumps for the champs, but Antonio Brown's still there, right? So and in a bumpy conference, I think they still could end up being the team standing out there. So, yeah.
Look at that. Elijah has my back throughout the Brandon Graham. Thank you very much for that. I like this comment here. This is a nice little nugget from Stevie Pan. Sirianni 4-0 off of a bye. And then Elijah comes through again and says, Eagles have a nice spot week 15 against the Raiders. That's a good call. A lot of people are probably eyeing that. If you can afford to not use them on Thanksgiving, though, I think a lot of people are going to be tempted to use Philly on Thanksgiving, even though they're going to kind of be the chalk that week, the highest owned team as well. So, all right, moving on here. Jason, why don't we do this before we talk about our splash entries and what we're going to do in those 2 different contests? Why don't we go ahead and roll the spot from Splash?
Perfect. Sports fans, don't miss out on the action right now at splashsports.com. Join leagues and enter massive contests with guaranteed multi-million-dollar prizes. Splash Sports brings the contest experiences straight to your phone in over 40 states with even more ways to play, compete, and win all season long. Finally, a way to play the games we know you love against your friends for real money. So get in the game and download now on iOS or Android, or play on the web at splashsports.com. So last week, the Packers eliminated us from the extra bloody Survivor contest.
We got our other 2 right, correct? We went 2-1?
We did.
Yep.
So, so we have a clean slate right now. And so what I want to say to you is that future value can go in the trash, right? We're trying to survive week 10. Week 10 is our week 1. I think we go our absolute best things we think in terms of our 3 winner for the extra bloody Survivor. I'm going to get a little cute with you, but I think we got to go pretty chalky. So all right, can we begin with the Buffalo Bills, Tone?
100%. That, to me, that is an easy one. I like it. Let's take the Bills for sure.
And I feel like we should go Broncos because I want a little juice on Thursday night, and the Raiders need to show it to me.
Yep, I like it a lot. We talked about the Raiders being tired. I saw your eyes light up when I talked about how they're on a short week and the mile-high air. So, yeah, we both like the Broncos. Let's do that.
I'm very tempted to get cute with the third entry. I think we could go a lot of different ways. Do you have any initial thoughts? And then I'll get cute with you after your serious thoughts.
Let's save Seattle for week 12 against Tennessee. So let's take them off the list.
Like that.
How about, I think Detroit week 12 as well, actually, with the Giants. How about the Colts? You said you want action on Thursday. You want a little early Sunday morning action. Colts, Falcons.
So if you recall, the Falcons impressed me in the second half against the Patriots.
That's right.
And while I am not a Michael Penix Jr. fan, for the first time ever, I was like, maybe he can play in this league. And that defense, I do think Jonathan Taylor could go nuts. I like the bounce back spot a lot for the Colts, but in a Survivor, I feel like I need to go away from that play.
Okay. How about Rams at Niners?
Yeah, I feel much more comfortable with.
Broncos, Bills, Rams. I mean, the Rams, let's look at their future value here real quick. There's that week 13 game that I mentioned. Week 14 at Arizona, but Arizona might be an ascending team. You're not using them at Detroit or against Detroit. You're not using them at Seattle. So yeah, I feel comfortable. This might be one of maybe the second best spot to use the Rams from here on out. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of people on them this week. So that might be a good one.
You know, Indy obviously doesn't have great spots, but they're playing Tennessee and they're, I believe one more time. No, they're not. That's interesting. We're talking through this with you live at Last Men Pod. Yep. Tony, I'm tempted to have the words Tampa Bay Buccaneers come out of my lips, but your conviction on the Rams, knowing the 49ers, are we getting Mac Jones, McCorkle?
We are. Yep.
Yeah. The revenge spot too for McVay. Yep. And also too, San Francisco still 6-3. You know what I mean? So, all right. So I think we go Bills, Broncos, Rams. Are you good with that, Tony?
Bills, Broncos, Rams for that contest sounds good.
Yep.
Let's talk about the next contest, but I also want to remind people the links for both of these contests, if you want to participate, are in the YouTube description. So check those out. And while we're talking about YouTube, if you guys can take a moment to give us a little thumbs up, especially if you got something from this show, something Jason and I said helped you out, helped you make a decision, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribing on YouTube. That's a big help as well. And just know that this episode will be available again on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, all that fun stuff as well, in about 24-ish hours or so.
And Tony, I will say, I feel like real quick, we got one more unboxing that has yet to be done. Shout out our friends at Authentic Fans. But I feel like maybe for our 3,000th follower on Twitter, maybe that individual who is the follower number 3,000 maybe gets the jersey, perhaps. So Tony didn't really know about this, but this thing's been hiding here waiting for a reason. So give us a follow. We're climbing. Tony's blowing this thing out. Now we get to give you a couple of losers.
3,000th follower on Twitter. We could also do a YouTube follower as well.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll figure it out.
How do you have that thing in your house and just not get curious, man? When I had Christmas presents under the tree when I was a kid, I don't know if my parents are watching this. Maybe I shouldn't say, but sometimes, you got to give a little peek. You got to give a little shake. Huh? You got to give a little shake.
Yeah, a little shake. I hear you.
Curiosity's not killing you?
Well, it is. We got to get rid of that Earl Campbell shirt, by the way.
I know.
We got some pretty good commenters. Maybe next week, maybe best comment next week. We did, for those who don't know, we opened an Earl Campbell jersey, pretty fresh signed with that old Houston Oiler powder blue. But anyway, maybe we'll give that away next week, perhaps to the best comment, something like that. But Sal contest, we need to pick a couple losers, Tony. We need to, I just feel like this is what I deserve after being eliminated from the Circa Survivor. All right. It just makes me feel better. Yep, I'm a bloody loser. All right. It is kind of fun to look at the board and want to pick losers, right? And it's like I was trying to sell you on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's like Patriots really going to 8-2, coming down here beating this Tampa Bay team. There was a lot I didn't like in the second half for the first time all season. So I'm going to be shocked for the first time in a long time if the Patriots win. So but yeah, I mean, we could go a lot of different directions with the losing team. I assume, well, I don't need to assume, we could also go against, we have the Bills to win. We certainly have the Dolphins as one of our bloody losers.
Yeah. I'm going to be completely honest, Jason.
Yes.
I don't think I can do this contest justice in our last couple minutes that we have here. This is such a different way, and we're going to try. We'll tell you what we think we're going on. This is such a different way to think because you love fading teams in Survivor pools and Circa Survivor. You pick on teams. You pick on the Titans. Well, in this one, you can only pick on a team once, and then they're gone. So this is a total reframing, and that's what makes this fun. Got to love the folks over at Splash by making these contests that are new, and this will be a first for me doing a loser Survivor contest. So whatever teams we come up with, we may change after I get a chance to kind of dig into this and strategize a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm drinking what you're putting out there. Yeah, I mean, so I think we will get a little cute perhaps and get rid of some of these teams that may not lose? What are some of these teams that might not lose too many games down the stretch, you know?
So how about the 49ers? You and I heard you say the 49ers have some good spots to lose them. And if we have conviction, which we do, maybe me a little more so than you, but we have conviction in the Rams beating the Niners. I think the Niners are a great team to use in Bloody Survivor.
I agree. I think
right.
that's a perfect team to use.
Okay. So we got one there. Who else can we pick on here?
Well, Tony, I mean, I really do believe that the Patriots' schedule is very favorable down the stretch. I don't think they lose a ton of games. And I'm going to just give you the Patriots schedule. So they're at Tampa, then it's home to the Jets, at Cincinnati, home to the Giants, bye, and then it's home to Buffalo, at Baltimore, which is obviously tough, but you got to get there. That's weeks 15, 16. And then at the Jets and home to Miami. I mean, I think they're going to win a lot of those games, save maybe the Buffalo-Baltimore ones. I just don't think they get this one here. Tampa Bay off a bye. I just think this scheduling spot, Tony, there's a reason why I'm not taking my family to Tampa. I don't go to Dolphin Stadium. I go to the pirate ship, but I don't know. Anyway, maybe.
Do you realize what we're doing though? Do you realize what we're doing? We're going against our two teams.
Exactly. And you know them best. And like Tony, I know maybe you don't want to divulge a full handicap on Tampa Bay, New England. You might have a lot of things to discuss there, but there was a viewer who was with me, a sharp viewer who was on Tampa Bay, Joe, I believe, put up a comment about Tampa Bay. So I'm not necessarily on an island. But I feel like maybe, Tony, we pencil in. Yeah, there it is. So Tony, maybe we pencil in we're 49ers, Patriots, but I'm not submitting those yet.
All right, feel Jason, me? Yes, I'm with you. This is perfect though, because you and I have had a rocky start to these splash pools since we started doing them 2 weeks ago. Okay.
Yep.
We have not even advanced 1 week. Okay. Do you remember, for those who don't know, Jason and I are both big Boston Red Sox fans. Do you remember how the Red Sox broke the curse? They traded Nomar Garcia-Parra. You got to do something bold like that. You got to stab yourself in the heart in order to break the curse. So it only makes sense that you and I are going to break this splash curse by fading our two favorite teams in this loser pool. Let's do it.
Our two favorite teams that are combined 13-5. You know? I love it.
Right. Absolutely. What a great start. If we can get through with New England, San Francisco in this contest, that's a great start. Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
No question about it. Final thing I just want to say, for those who haven't tracked this Grandissimo contest at Circa, right? 11 entries left, 100,000 to get in, 6.9 million, right? I not too far away from having conversations, perhaps, among some folks starting to get down to 5 entries, if you will. I don't think that thing's going the whole season. So we'll see.
No, that thing might not go another 3 weeks. It's going to be fascinating to see if Grandissimo even makes it to Thanksgiving. Honestly, we'll see. Because there's some tough weeks coming up. By the way, a little quick preview for next week's show. If you don't have the Patriots available, and 53% people do, next week's pretty tough too, Jason. Week 11 doesn't feel. Do you feel good about the Texans with Stroud coming back from a concussion, we hope, against the Titans? I mean, the Packers at the Giants after the Packers just put up that stinker against Carolina. Week 11 is tough. I can't wait to talk to you about it next week.
Love it.
Good stuff. Right. I think we've done all we can. Best of luck this week, everybody, in Circa Survivor. To all the survivors out there, let's go get that bag. Let's go get that $18.7 million. Take care, everyone.
Lines are set, the odds are high. Every bet a test who will survive.